So if you would summarize kind of what you want Babylon to be for people, right? Or for crypto or for investing, what would be your vision of where it could end up versus kind of, in between then here and there?
Yeah, I mean, the really ambitious goal, mission is like create $1 billion in wealth every year for people.
Oh, I love it.
The way I see it is you can see it as Vanguard, but 20, 30 years from now, but the crypto, because I believe the asset class with the most opportunity is going to be crypto, and every other asset is also going to be crypto, because real estate,
Of
forex,
course.
everything is going to be tokenized as well.
Welcome to Mission DeFi with Brad Nickel, where we explore projects in decentralized finance that are innovating and driving our mission of financial freedom forward. Thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, and review Mission DeFi and spread the word by posting a tweet to the show. All opinions expressed by Brad Nickel or his guests are their opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Black Knox, Material Indicators, or any other affiliated organizations. You should not treat any opinion expressed by Brad Nickel or his guests as an inducement to make a particular investment, follow a particular strategy, or become involved with any project. A project being featured on the show is not an endorsement of that project in any way. This podcast is for informational purposes only. Now, here's Mission DeFi with Brad Nickel.
I am excited today to have Ramon Recuero. I'm going to mess up his name. I just asked him to pronounce it for me, but hey, and you would think living in Miami, I could handle Spanish, but And Ramon is from Babylon Finance. And it is a really cool DAO kind of community-based group investing model that I've been anxious to get involved with for quite a while. I finally got my beta invite, so I'm in there now and excited, and was really blown away by how much volume is happening in there in a beta, kind of a closed private beta, really. And so first, though, I want Ramon to kind of introduce himself, tell us about how he got into the crazy crypto world, and then, kind of the origin story of the project and how it got going and all that good stuff. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Brad. And thank you for joining the beta.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll try to be short with my intro. Basically, I'm from Spain originally. I came to study in the US. I studied computer science, and then I worked for several IT companies as a developer. One of them was Zynga, that I think is relevant. The developers of Farmville, Works with Friends, and all these.
Oh, wow.
All these games on Facebook. And then it was like the first moment that I realized that if you're developing a platform like Facebook, you don't really control what you're working on. Because while I was there is when Facebook changed their advertisement algorithm, and then the revenue of Zynga kind of crashed.
Yeah,
overnight.
I remember that. That was crazy.
So that was quite crazy. And you realize the platform where I'm working on, I don't really own it, because they can change overnight the rules of the game.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. No, a dangerous and scary place to be. It's great to own your own world.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that crypto offers for developers, and it's really appealing. And then after I work at Zynga, eventually, because I love startups, and I had my own gaming company before I joined Zynga, and I was acquired by Zynga. But after that, I went back to the startup world. I was at Y Combinator, where I was helping mostly crypto founders, and also helping Y Combinator develop more internal software and things like work at a startup and other software that they released while I was there.
So wait, you were at Y Combinator, you were acting as kind of a developer / advisor with the projects? Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
That's very cool.
And that time, I think it was like 2016, I was already focused mostly on crypto, because it's where all my attention, as many happens once you go through the black hole, you cannot come
get
back.
Out. Yeah.
You're in Kansas, and then you're stuck there.
Yeah, and it's like, how can I ever work on anything else? I can't imagine it.
Yep. And while I was at Y Combinator, I was already thinking about ways for investing, even to apply crypto to investing. For example, Y Combinator is this model where they have like 100 of startups that go together through this program that lasts 3 months. And in the end, they do a demo day. And then the investors come and invest more money and then get bigger. So I
Right.
was already thinking and trying to apply in Y Combinator. It's like, oh, why don't we make all the startup founders share the upside of all their companies, so all of them get like a token, and they all share like a little bit of the success of each other's companies, and
Oh,
that
that's
way
a great
they
idea.
are more incentivized. But YC has million things going on, so and they have in biotech and things, so it's like, and it's working great already. So they didn't have an incentive to kind of make this happen. So then, long story short, I jumped onto crypto full time. So I went to work for Open Zeppelin, that they are based in Argentina. They were the
Nice.
creators of the ERC20 token, and also they are one of the most famous developer companies in the space.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I worked there for a year and a half, and then eventually one of the co-founders left, and it's the one that brought me on board. So then I shortly afterwards I left as well. But then I was already hooked full time on crypto, and since then I was waiting for the perfect moment to create my own thing.
What a great series of experiences, though, for you to build a project. I mean, because the skills you probably learned first at Zynga, then Y Combinator, where you're learning how to build things on the fly and change directions and pivot and work with new people. And then you in the center of the Solidity universe shortly thereafter and learning some skills there. I think, wow, that's a great background, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, and the main lesson learned for Y Combinator in the end is like there is a lot of luck involved. All the good founders are similar, but then you realize it's like, oh, this person that is really famous and is really good. They are really smart, but it's also they're just like you. Then it also where you start having a bit of luck and then be at the right moment at the right time, because you can be early. Like Webpan, where when delivering food they were just
Sure.
15 years early. Is the
Yep.
same as being wrong.
Yeah, exactly. No, I launched one of the first web-based SaaSes. Well, we called it ASP at the time, and we were, good 4 years early. So yeah, definitely, I get it. Absolutely. No, that's a great realization to have. It kind of puts you in a position of saying, well, I can do what they did, and at the
Exactly.
same time, it gives you confidence in yourself, but also helps you realize that, hey, sometimes things aren't always going to go the way you want them, right? So.
Yep.
So you left there, and then did you start like, okay, I've got to find a project. I got to build something now.
Yeah, it's interesting because after the co-founder left Open Zeppelin and I left, I said, okay, I want to be in crypto full time. And this was in the bear market of crypto prices. So I actually optimized for increasing the pay. So I joined Google and I was leading a team in Google Cloud. But at the same time, I was looking at crypto and all my free time devoting to crypto. So to try to maximize my opportunity. And then starting last year, this probably relates to many of your listeners. For the last 5-6 years, many of my friends have always been asking me, because I'm the crypto guy of the group. It's like, should I invest in Solana? Should I invest in Cardano? And it's like, oh, please no. So eventually I got tired. So I created this smart contract and this Telegram channel, and I told a few of my friends, okay, let's just put the money together here in this smart contract, and let's talk through Telegram, and let's invest the money together.
Nice.
And
so the origins of Babylon.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I actually named it Adriano Fan, that because my favorite restaurant in Madrid, that is seafood, Galician restaurant. And then this fund went really well because it returned like 150% in like a month and a half or so. And in Ether, so it was like a lot more versus, because Ether also went like crazy during that time. So we were already lucky. And then it's like, okay, how can we give this opportunity not just to my friends, but also to more people at the scale? Because one of my main thesis is like, I believe there is not going to be a lot of alpha in many of the traditional asset classes. Equities compared to 30-40 years ago, the price earnings ratio don't make much sense. Bonds, they have been in a 30-year downtrend, and they are likely to continue. So I believe the places where you can find the most wealth are probably new asset classes, mostly cryptocurrencies. So it's how we can bring this opportunity to as many people as possible. But crypto is really complex. Most people don't know where to start. So that way of starting through a friend that knows what he's doing, and then investing together is like a way to kind of bring this opportunity to more people.
That's so. I have two questions that came out of that right away. So first of all, were you kind of studying finance and trading along the way while you were also learning kind of the technical underpinnings of crypto and how to build on Ethereum? I mean, were you kind of like learning to study that and figure it all out?
Yeah, actually, crypto is really interesting, especially intellectually, because for me, I have always been interested in money and finance, and then crypto just grabs you from so many different angles, from computer science, from the history of money, from game theory. That is also another aspect that I love. So it's like so stimulating. And in the last few years, I've been learning a lot about the history of money, gold. Nick Szabo, for example, has a lot of really good essays about the history of tokens, metals, and so on, and the evolution. And then in the last 2 years, I actually been learning a lot of traditional finance, how bonds work, how the repo market works. That is a lot of the underpinnings of the traditional market, to try to get like a foundation of, okay, what works, what doesn't work, because a lot of things are not great the way that it works, but it's incredibly complex. But at the same time, it's good to understand what we're trying to disrupt, so we don't repeat a lot of the mistakes that they already solve. And to know
I think that makes a ton of sense, right? Like, I mean, I'm by no means an expert in finance at all. And I, at some point you think, well, okay, if we don't know the bad things, then we're going to not repeat them, because we're going to say, why would we do that in the first place? Right. The mistakes that people are making, adding middlemen in, whatever. But I think it makes a ton of sense to say, I think it does two things. First, it gives you exposure to other types of financial products, right? That can be created better and more easily in crypto. And the second thing is, then if you're going to go down that path, how do you make sure you don't create a mess, right? And how do you take advantage of permissionlessness, and how do you take advantage of automation and the capabilities that you get in crypto that hinder everything in traditional finance? So that's cool.
Exactly.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and also learning the foundation of investing that apply to all asset classes. It's like Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett. I really love value investing. And it's like Charlie Munger says, it's like they had another co-founder, and it's like the only reason the other co-founder didn't make it is because he wanted to get rich quicker. It's like all the investments of their company are public, so most people could have copied just what they have done for the last 20, 30 years, but most people don't do it. But
exactly,
because it's human nature, and we have a lot of biases and a lot of things that we have to prevent ourselves from messing up. That's why Vanguard, for example, has done like a great job for the last 30 years. And then 30 years, the landscape was mostly active managers and really few passive managers. And then right now it has totally shifted. So right now it's mostly passive managers, and there are almost no active managers, because if it gets in the index, it's going to go up, like Tesla has done.
Right. You'll make money anyway. That's interesting.
It's really interesting how things change, and what was a greatest, because I think passive at some point is gonna stop work, because the whole market is in passive. So then at some point, this is gonna create also the same flywheel effect on the way up that it creates. It will create it on the way down.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, right? Everything kind of crashes together.
Yes,
because everybody's just like, let's see what happens.
Exactly. Mike Green, for example, that is a financial analyst, and he has his own hedge fund. He talks a lot about the rise of passive and how it's just basically 3 or 4 indexes moving everything, and then you have the BlackRocks and all these people that if they buy something, then just that increases in value just because they buy them. And because all these indexes in Vanguard are kind of like weighted by how much people are buying it, the more someone buys it, then they're forced to buy it more. So it's kind of like this flywheel effect that never stops. That's
amazing. Yeah, I had not thought through that, but that makes a ton of sense. When you started the group with your friends in Telegram, was this a scenario where you were basically kind of leading and guiding the investment choices yourself, and everyone else was kind of along for the ride? Did you find that people started giving you their opinions and were starting to research crypto, and so they were like, oh, wait a minute, we should do this or whatever?
Yeah, it's like a bit of everything, but mostly I would say at the beginning I was leading it, but then one of my, there were like 15 people in that fund, and one person was also helping and then suggesting strategies. So we expect that breakdown also in Babylon. It's like for every 100 people, mostly 90% of them, they just want to give the money, deposit, and forget about it.
Let it go.
Yeah. Then 10% or so will be curious enough to learn more and kind of get more interested and get deeper in the crypto space. And maybe 1% will learn enough to then be able to suggest the strategies themselves.
Yeah, it's funny. That's really interesting because I can't imagine myself ever being one of those passive people. It's just not how I function. I really want to understand and dive deep and be a part of it and build things. And so for me, I'm not going to be one of the 90%. I might be one of the 10% until I figure it out.
Yeah.
Or at least I think I figured it out, which I have failed at and succeeded at in my life. But that's an interesting thing, that makeup of the personalities and the people who want to passively invest. All right, so you're doing this group. Everybody made money. Everybody loves you. They all think you're a genius, and you were smart about it. You did well. And then how did this evolve? Did you say, okay, this worked, I got to build something?
Yep. Then it's like two of the people that were in that group as well. They obviously like the idea. One of them, I worked with him before at Moss, a company in Seattle that was in the SEO space. And then it's like, okay, let's do this together. So starting that Christmas, we rented a house in Half Moon Bay in the Bay Area, close to San Francisco. And then we did like an MVP of the project. And then soon after that, in January, I quit Google. And then I talked with some investors because of Y Combinator and because of also my time at Open Zeppelin, I was well connected in the crypto space. So It's like the round happened really fast. And then I talked with one of my coworkers at Open Zeppelin, a really great developer, and it's like, oh, do you want to join? And then he joined as well. And then Raul, he was the cybersecurity chief of Spain, of the whole country.
Wow.
And he was a VP of Telefonica. So then I also convinced him to leave Telefonica, that is like the biggest telco of Spain, to come join us and be like our security expert.
That's awesome, man. What a team. That's incredible. Well, people must trust you.
Yeah, or for good or for bad. I'm crazy enough that they believe what I say.
So you quit Google this past January?
Yep. And end of January I quit, or first week of February. And yeah, in 1 week, we already had finished the seed round that we raised $2 million.
Yeah, that's awesome. Network and connections and maintaining good relationships is critical. Just critical if you want to move fast. Just real quick as a side note, what was the level of interest of developers at Google that you were working with in crypto, or even in what you were doing?
I say as a whole, from the people I talk, most people in Google were not so, this was until January. Now with Meta and Facebook, they're probably more aware, but at the time it was really, I was the only one in my immediate group that was kind of focused on it. Some people traded a little bit, but not it's like everything. It's like adoption curve. There are like the early adopters, then the majority, the middle majority, and then the late adopters. So I think it's still early. Besides everything,
so
I
early.
think it's still early.
Yeah, it's incredible to me though. I'm not a developer, but I've always been in tech. Since 94, 95. And I've always been a nerd with tech since I was 15 years old. And that's another thing. Like, it's that whole, you were talking about the people who want to be in control versus the passive ones. Like me, if it's tech and I get a chance to try it, I'm one of those people. I have to be on it. I've got to try it. But it's so hard for me to fathom people who are like world-class developers, right? You have some of the best developers in the world at Google who are not more curious about this to like climb into it. It's so mind-boggling to me that there's this entire world of people in tech who haven't even touched this.
It's the curiosity, and it's kind of like self-fulfilling. Actually, Y Combinator and Hacker News is a perfect example of this, because they have been kind of anti-crypto since the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think there's a self-fulfilling effect in the sense like they missed it at the beginning and they were kind of against at the beginning, and kind of it creates this bias of consistency and then being consistent about it because they missed it. And also people don't like change. So if you are a developer that you know really well, Python or web technology or doing website or doing mobile, it's like you don't want to learn anything. It's kind of like you have to. So there are always a few tinkerers that they just have the curiosity and And those are usually these people tend to be entrepreneurs because they don't care so much about specific technology. They care about doing something for the world. And then it's just when people just jump to whatever is new, so you can create something innovative.
That makes sense. It's probably the guys who try every language that comes across their browser, right? And say, okay, I want to try that out. Why is this better, right? And that makes a ton of sense. And I love the angle that they're usually entrepreneurs and they want to change the world, right? And that's the interesting thing. I mean, we have a set of people of obviously in crypto that are just investors trying to make more money.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is I still have not run into anyone that came in for that, me, right? And the tech, trying to understand it, but didn't end up on a mission, right? And that's what's really, because I think at some point you have to say to yourself, okay, I'm not just playing with money here. Now I have to understand what these projects do and these chains do, or whatever you're interested in. And then that starts permeating your thinking processes, because you start saying to yourself, well, if this is possible, maybe this is possible. And you get into this whole concept of trustless and permissionlessness. And it's like, oh my God, everything else is broken. You know,
you
it's
see
like
it everywhere. You see the problem everywhere. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, this is astounding. It's funny. I don't get to actually read books very much because I'm so busy. But when I'm in the car driving kids back and forth or whatever, I'm listening to books. And I just read or just listened to Ben Mesrick's book about GameStop, social, whatever, antisocial. And I had never sat down and thought about what happened when a stock trade went through, right? And he goes through this whole segment of the book is the details of every person involved and all the middlemen and all the processes. I'm like, holy crap, what a mess, right? Like, I mean, it caused this mess of loss and anguish for people. And it was completely unnecessary. If that had been happening on a blockchain, all of those people in the middle would have been eliminated, all of the influence, everything. So, now my eyes are always, everything's broken. Everything is broken. This can be changed. So it's interesting. Okay. So you have this success. You say, I'm going to build this thing. Did you actually, you said you got an MVP in January?
Yeah, but that was just for us. But then the Wall Streets and Robinhood thing happens. And there's actually, I posted a blog post on just the week after Robinhood and Wall Street bets and GameStop happens. And then it's like, yeah, we need to solve this problem. And it's like how we can invest together as a community, like the Wall Street bets community does, but on a truly permissionless platform, so Robinhood can shut you down and so on and so on. And it kind of resonated really well. And
nice.
Then from there is like the race and everything. So
yeah, your timing was perfect.
Yeah, and then the name all came from The Richest Man in Babylon. That is one of the classic books in wealth and investing. That is a great read. I recommend it to everyone. It's like only 100 pages. It's like fables from. Yeah.
Perfect. That's perfect. I love it. All right. So then you got all this team together, incredible, powerful, talented people, and you guys start building. And then when did you enter beta with it?
We released the alpha for our investors, because for our investors also, we have like 80 investors, because our approach was to get as many people from the crypto world as possible to try to get support and get people that know and they're going to be users, because there is a huge overlap between our investors and actually users as well.
Sure.
So
makes sense.
Then from these investors plus us, the team, we released an alpha around end of May or June. And then a month later, we enter private beta. And slowly we have been increasing the number of users that we are letting in. And then in the last 6 weeks, we have increased from 1 million in TVL to 12 million in TVL right now.
I was shocked by how much was in there. I thought, well, they've just released it in beta. That was so impressive, man. I was like, wow, okay. Okay, so if you would summarize kind of what you want Babylon to be for people, right? Or for crypto or for investing, what would be your vision of where it could end up versus kind of, in between then here and there?
Yeah, I mean, the really ambitious mission is like create $1 billion in wealth every year for people.
Oh, I love it.
The way I see it is you can see it as Vanguard but 20, 30 years from now, but the crypto, because I believe the asset class with the most opportunity is going to be crypto, and every other asset is also going to be crypto, because real estate,
Of
forex,
course.
everything is going to be tokenized as well. So
Exactly.
it's going to be on the blockchain.
I love that mission. Okay, so why don't we do this? Because we've been talking through this, but let's walk, if you could, people through what Babylon is and what the experience is like for just a passive investor versus someone who actually wants to actually create something.
Perfect. Yeah, Babylon, you can say Babylon as this network of different investment clubs or different communities that we call gardens, like the Babylon Gardens.
Sure.
And every garden has its own investment thesis, its own risk, time, and liquidity preference. So you can have one garden where people that are risk averse are just gonna deposit fiat into stables, and they're just gonna lend those stables or just yield farm, but with low risk to generate like 7-10% per year.
Right.
And you can have a different garden where people are gonna take directional bets on the market, like buy this token or buy this other token, or do leverage strategies to try to get more alpha, but also exposed to more risk. So you can have all this kind of, and you can have a macro garden, you can have either a bond garden, you can have a lot of different strategies. And then the way it works is like, to join a garden and join that community, you need to deposit. And then once you deposit, you become a member of that community. And once you're a member, you can suggest strategies, and then only the members of that same community can approve or vote or don't vote those strategies. And if a strategy gets enough support, it will get capital from the pool from all the community.
Great. So this is, and it's essentially, when I think one of these is started, it's probably one or two people who are saying, hey, we have this kind of thesis for investing, and we want to start investing, and we'll create this garden, and then other people come in. It's only been going a short time, but have you found that members of a garden have deferred to the originators on strategy and actual specific investments, or have you also run into members of the garden maybe overriding what originators of the strategy were?
Yeah, it's still early, but definitely in some gardens, people are stepping up, because one thing that I didn't mention is like the whole Babylon has also a governance token that kind of aligns the incentives of all the gardens together, because at the simplest level, you can say that the protocol gets like 5% of the performance profits of all the strategies across all the communities. And then the governance token kind of controls the treasury of the whole protocol. So
Okay.
it's just the token holders. And we started a mining program 2-3 weeks ago. And then the way the mining program works is like the more profits a strategy has, the more governance tokens that the strategy receives. The longer it lasts, the more it receives. The more capital that is allocated to that strategy, the more Babel it receives. And then within a strategy, the person that created it receives more, receives like 10%. And then people that voted for it, if it performed well, will also be rewarded. And then people that deposit.
Nice.
So then in some gardens, people are stepping up because they want to suggest strategies, because they know that
earn it.
Yeah. And all the incentives are aligned. So if I create wealth for others, then it's also going to be good for me, because there is this resistance that I also get this argument from people. It's like, but why would I share the alpha? And it goes back to what I talk about Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, that in the end, most of the alpha is already public, but people don't have the discipline to do it. So having a community that kind of allows, or the diamond hands, or these kind of memes, helps keep people together and kind of with the same thesis. And then people can help others make money, and then because it's the pie, you can see it also as the pie analogy. Right. That is like, you can get the whole thing of a really small pie, or you can get 10% of this really big pie. So 10% of this really big pie is a lot more than what you can invest on your own.
That's cool. That's very cool. So let's walk through, let's say a scenario. Let's say I wanted to start a DeFi 2.0 investment strategy, right? And I'm only investing in kind of the latest and greatest Alchemix, Olympus DAO, Liquidity, those kinds of investments, right? And the originating strategy for the garden for me would be investing in those protocols, but also probably doing some yield farming within those protocols, especially Olympus and those kinds of real quick, is it currently, it's just Ethereum mainnet right now?
Yeah, it's only
Okay.
Ethereum mainnet. In our case, we have a lot of complexity because we integrate with a bunch of other DeFi protocols. So it's not as simple or switch to, because all the protocols need to be there and the
Sure.
option. But we will probably explore deeply like L2, Optimism, Arbitrum, like
Okay.
first quarter.
So you'll get a lot of the mainnet projects that are also in those layer twos. Okay, cool. Okay, so I go in, I create this garden, I say this is our thesis and philosophy, and then people say, yeah, I like this. This is great. So Sally puts in $10,000, Joe puts in $1,000, somebody else puts in $100,000, whatever, and they all basically own proportional shares of that garden.
Yep.
And they say, yes, I agree with this strategy. And then me, I guess, as the originator, I would propose, hey, okay, let's put 10% in Alchemix, let's put 10% in Olympus DAO, let's put whatever. And then everyone votes. Does everyone vote individually on each of those purchases?
Individually.
Okay. Yeah. And then if I was saying I want to buy Olympus DAO and then I want to stake Olympus DAO, would that be one vote or would that be two votes?
Normally, that could be one strategy, although we don't support staking on Olympus right now because there are a lot of things. But for example, we support one strategy that we support right now is, for example, saying, okay, I want a maximum exposure on Ether, so I'm gonna deposit Ether on Compound, and then I'm gonna borrow DAI from Compound as well, and then I'm gonna use that DAI and I'm gonna put it in this year Vault, or I'm gonna use that DAI and I'm gonna put it on Curve, or I'm gonna buy a token. So we support those chaining of DeFi operations in one strategy, but cool. We don't support yet, because there's so many staking, so many everywhere.
So many.
So we need to catch up at some point. Probably next quarter, we're gonna focus a lot of integrations because we only support like 8 to 9 protocols right now that are the main ones, but still there is a lot of long tail. Yeah.
And that's a lot of complexity, right? I mean, when you think about, I keep waiting for some way for there to be that will allow projects like yours and others to be able to kind of capture, so the projects themselves joins and create something. I mean, there's like this, I don't know what the heck this looks like because I'm not a developer, but there's this layer that allows every other project that has staking and yield farming and whatever to actually feed into that layer so that projects like yours or investment protocols or automation protocols could actually utilize them all together, right? But obviously that doesn't exist. So that requires you guys to actually write for every protocol. And if something changes, everything breaks.
Exactly. And it's ironic, because one of the benefits of the blockchain is like everything is composable and you hear
Sure.
things like the money Legos. And it's true. You don't need to ask permission. You don't need to ask for an API key. But the problem is like there is a lot of complexity and every project does their things the way they want to.
Exactly.
So you need this layer of, that's actually what we are building. It's quite complicated. And also there is like a security compounding risk. So that's why we're only integrating with the blue chips of DeFi, Compound, Aave, Uniswap, Curve, Convex, and 2 or 3 more, Lido, because the protocols need to be really secure, because otherwise you are although we have like a security isolation model in like every garden is their own smart contract and every strategy within a garden is their own smart contract as well.
Oh, wow.
So we have several layers
levels
of isolation.
So even if one hack occurs or exploit occurs on one strategy, everything else in that garden is okay, and that garden doesn't impact the other gardens. That's great. Okay, so I set up this DeFi 2.0 fund. Let's say we're just buying and holding, right? Or maybe we do some leveraging and buy more. Well, I don't know. And then Sally says, hey, I like X, Y, and Z token. And my response is, well, that's not a DeFi 2.0 token. I'll be the purist in the group. Then the group that's put in as a proposal, like kind of a standard DAO proposal, snapshot vote kind of thing. And everyone who has a stake in that garden can say yay or nay to Sally's idea, right?
Exactly. It's all through our UI and the votes are done through signatures. So you don't need to pay.
Cool.
And and for your garden, you also have more granularity because you can give like different shares, different permissions. So for example, you can create your garden and say, okay, I'm the only one that can suggest strategies, but everyone else can vote and everyone else can deposit. Or you can say, no, only these 3 people can suggest, or open it totally and say, no, everyone can suggest, everyone can vote. Or so you have granularity to make a private garden also as well. So nobody can enter except people that you whitelist. So you have flexibility there.
Oh, that's very cool. That's actually exciting. And once I set the levels, is it locked? Like I can't change it later?
You can change it. The creator of the garden can change it.
Nice. Very nice. Oh, this sounds really powerful, man. I can't wait to dive into this deeper. I'm a little bit of a degen in some of the things I'm in. So but I could see me taking like a part of that. I get the same questions you were getting, right? Friends and family, and so I think this is a great outlet for that. That's awesome. That's really cool. So how do people, are people creating, is there a discussion forum with each garden? Is there some way for people to actually have ongoing conversations and chats? Are they creating Telegram communities for their garden and having those discussions there and then coming back into the interface? How's that all work?
Great question. Yeah. Once you create a garden, we ask you also for your Telegram channel, and then we automatically send notifications, for example, when a new deposit happens, when a new strategy gets created, when there are for both. So that's already, so every garden, if they want to, because it's optional, you can set your Telegram channel.
That's cool. And then so that discussion can be happening in Telegram. Everybody can see what's going on with the project. And then they come in to vote via their wallet, I assume, to prove that they have it. Have there been things that you were really shocked and surprised by that have come out of this? Or have there been things that have there been unique strategies that you guys like never thought people would actually try to do, or anything else unusual from it that you have come out of it?
One thing that we were not expecting, but many people are asking for it, and I don't think we are, but still, I think we're going to try to accommodate it, is like shorter term plays. For example, what they call gems, finding tokens early, and when as soon as they get listed, and then try to buy them and then sell them later. Because the way I see Babylon is more like, okay, and there are several gardens that have this approach that is, okay, we're going to invest in these strategies and they're going to last weeks to that time frame. Not like these other people that they just want to buy one token and selling this the next day. And this for group trade. I mean, we can do it really fast, but this is still, because for the voting needs to happen and then the ending, it can take a few hours. So you cannot time the entry as well. It doesn't matter if you are lending or buying Ethereum for the next few weeks, but it may matter if you're buying a token that has almost no liquidity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would assume as well, in terms of kind of making those decisions at the speed of trade, that fees play into that too. I mean, if you have $10 million you're trading, that's a different story than if it's, $150,000, because obviously day trading isn't going to work really well on mainnet with fees at speed.
There's something that we haven't talked yet, but regarding gas, we have done a lot of improvements, and actually Babylon by default is actually really gas efficient, because if you have 100 people that wants to, for example, deposit into Carve and then staking Convex, every one of those 100 people will need to do this operation, and it's actually good. But if you do it through the garden, you only do it once.
That's awesome.
Even if it's mainnet Ethereum, I mean, depositing into the garden and withdrawing will still be expensive, although we have tried to optimize it as much as possible. But then all the things that happen inside the garden, they just happen once for all the members of the garden. So the more money, the more members that are in the garden, the more efficient it gets.
That makes a ton of sense. I'm assuming there's not a lock-in period, right? An investor can come and go from a garden anytime they choose.
That's the beauty. The creator of a garden can also set like a lock-in period for their garden. Because when you invest in a garden, you actually get the garden tokens. You get like your participation is in the tokens of the garden. So later, even each garden could also, in theory, create their own liquidity pools and sushi swap. Or some of once the gardens get bigger, could also create their own composability and their own, because in the end, this is a tool for people to create their own hedge funds, their own mutual funds, their own investment club, and awesome. Then have them blossom on their own.
That's great. My company has a mean reversion indicator that I've wanted to utilize in DeFi. We use it on centralized exchanges right now. But the biggest limitation is the speed of trades. Mean reversion, the longest of trades open for us is 5 days. Average is about 2.3 hours. And it happens a lot. Some days there'll be 800 signals in a day because Bitcoin is down or Ethereum is down. And on another day, there'll be 2, right? And it's incredibly profitable. 95% of the signals hit at least 1.25% profit. But trying to do that in DeFi is, scaling wise is a nightmare especially on mainnet.
the
from a
gas costs
gas fees,
will eat
perspective.
into that. Yeah, that's interesting because I think Charlie Munger also said like the only freelance was mean reversion. It's the only thing that you can count
That-
in nature, and there is mean reversion
It's
eventually.
my absolute favorite, and that's why I love it, because I'm like, I have my business partners, they're all scalping and follow trends and everything else, and I'm like, you know what? The only thing I know I can count on is how human beings are going to react emotionally, and that's why I love mean reversion. That's all I do. I don't do anything else. I don't sit there and try to time the market. I don't do anything else. I just do mean reversion. But unfortunately, in DeFi so far, we're not quite there yet in terms of gas fees and speed and enough liquidity all the time in different pairs.
And also education, because I think many people get lost just trying to chase this NFT today, the other NFT tomorrow, this token today, and then in the end, if they make the tally, they could have been better just leaving the money in Ethereum,
staying right there and earning the gains. Exactly. Now, I do invest fundamentally in a lot of protocols because I love the protocols. That's the great thing about this podcast, is I get to meet brilliant people like you that are building really cool things, and I can make even more informed decisions. It's a totally selfish endeavor for me, but I also do, more degen. I think like 25% is degen and
I think that's
reversion,
perfect.
and the rest is, so
a barbell approach where you have like and then the stuff to play with, and then that way you increase the alpha but decrease the risk.
Exactly. So how many actual individual folks are in Gardens right now?
Total people in Gardens, I think around 400 right now. The biggest garden is around 100 right now.
Have you found that the dynamics of community are working out? Are people getting along?
Yes, so far yes, but we'll need to see once it grows more, because now it's because the initial network is more us, then it expands.
Yeah.
For now it's working well.
Good.
I don't know once it grows one order of magnitude more if it will be.
I just wonder what the dynamics are going to be like as this thing progresses and there's 1,000 people in a garden, right? Or whatever. Yep. Can the creator limit the number of participants?
Yes.
Okay. Oh,
and
awesome.
They can also set it private or pub, but the in the end, I hope that every garden will be something and it will evolve. So I hope there are many different gardens and each one is really different to each other. And
I love the potential of the tokens, right? Of these tokens that could then turn into whole nother.
It's an ecosystem. One also cool thing that we are doing in 10 days, actually, we are doing this NFT event that we are calling the Prophets of Babylon. And instead of doing, because our token is not live yet either, it doesn't have a price.
Right.
So instead of doing like what most of the projects in DeFi have done, that is you do this IDO and you release directly on SushiSwap or Uniswap or MVP on Balancer to find a price. What we are doing is we are doing these NFT drops that doubles as an IDO. So every one of these NFTs comes also with some bubble tokens.
Oh, nice.
And then there is an auction, and and it's actually a blind auction, to be fair, from users. So there is no pressure to bid any price because you don't know what other people are bidding. So you just bid your true value. And then based on that, we'll use that to seed the value of the token and then list it on exchanges.
Oh, that's really cool. I love that idea. That's going to be a blast. I'm going to watch that. The art, I saw the art that you sent over. It's beautiful. That's exciting. People are just going to want the NFTs anyway because they're so cool.
Yeah,
that's great.
And we are providing also value to those NFTs because some of them, for example, provide you 1% extra LP bonus forever if you have it, and you will be able to stake it in a garden, and then you will have like Hall of Fame Babylon, because these are like famous people. And in a garden you can say who are the prophets in that garden, and you can get bonuses as a strategist also, or as a voter if you have some of these.
You guys, so many fun things you guys can do with this from a community perspective, an earning perspective. Do you find that people are participating in multiple gardens, or mostly people participating in one at a time?
It's mostly, I think the average is 1.3 or 1.4 right now. So it's mostly one, some are on 2. I mean, there are a few people that are in 4 or 5, but I would say mostly 1 or 2. And it's probably having that person that grabs you and says, join this garden, or if you know the creator, that's probably the strongest. Strongest.
Yeah, because you're going to come in because of them. But then you may discover others as you
exactly.
go. Yeah. That's
one of them, for example, right now is called the Fountain of ETH. And the thesis is actually really simple. Try to accumulate more ETH and uses low-risk strategies. Well, I had to caveat that in crypto, nothing is low risk, but within the range that is staking in Lido.
Really?
Yeah. and to accumulate more ether, or doing like the curve STETH pool as well. So it's like a strategy with relatively low risk just to accumulate more ether, and it's kind of returning so far like 10% in ether denominated
Nice. Nice.
per year,
So
plus the
it's just
bubble
an ETH
rewards.
accumulation strategy. And when I withdraw from a garden, am I withdrawing the balances of what's in the garden? Like if there's ETH and WBTC or whatever, then am I getting those tokens, or how does that work?
Another great question. The creator of the garden sets a reserve asset. So for example, for some right now we support DAI or WETH, soon WBTC and USDC. So when you deposit, people need to deposit for now the reserve asset of the garden. And the strategies, when they enter, because basically the garden has just that reserve asset. For example, if this garden is in DAI, the garden holds DAI. But then when a strategy enters, basically the garden converts that DAI to whatever the strategy does. And when the strategy completes, it basically does the opposite and binds everything to that asset. So for example, if you want to do, if your thesis is accumulating ether, it makes sense for you that the reserve asset is on WETH. But if you want a garden that's well in a bear market, maybe you prefer to do a DAI one, or it depends what your thesis is.
If you're doing an accumulation strategy, it makes total sense that your goal is that you have people buy in with WETH so that when they exit, they get more WETH, because that was the goal. That makes sense. So what are you guys kind of envisioning for the future in terms of functionality? I mean, it's so new. Like, I think right now it's just like, okay, let's get to full launch and public launch. But what's the timing on that? And then, do you have ideas that you really want to get out there, in the next phase?
Yeah, basically in 2 weeks we're doing this NFT event. Then after that, because also one thing that we haven't mentioned is like Babylon is meant to be owned by the community, and there is only 1 million tokens, and 50% of them have been reserved to the mining program that lasts for 10 years, and then 20% more for the treasury that we're giving part of that to this NFT event. And all the proceeds from this NFT event will go to the treasury, and then the treasury is going to use part of that proceeds to start the liquidity on SushiSwap or Uniswap, so the token will have a price. And once that's done, then we're going to focus on increase the options for the strategies, so they have a lot more availability, or using this DeFi protocol, or
more
Alchemist,
integrations.
Alchemist. There are so many that it's really difficult to keep up. And then what we want to do is also L2, because for us, I think we have a lot to play with, because I think a lot of gardens probably want to stay in layer 1 because it's the higher security, and depending on the amounts that people are depositing, and as the garden gets bigger, you probably still want to keep that. But maybe a garden wants to connect to L2 to use some L2 strategies, and maybe some smaller gardens wants to create directly on L2 and just access L2 strategies. So we'll play with those options, but it's not going to be the usual that the DeFi protocol does, or L1 or L2. No, it's going to be like, depending on the garden, probably it's going to have some flexibility.
That makes sense.
Another thing that we want to do, because right now we have gardens that are kind of like mutual funds or hedge funds or those investment clubs. Then we also want to do like we call Babylon galleries, that is going to be a way for people to buy NFTs together. And we're also going to plan to do Babylon balls, that are this way of helping treasuries of other DeFi protocols to put those treasuries to work. Kind of like an OSIS safe, but because we already have all the integrations, and the way to create a strategy is like through codeless UI. It's really simple for managers of these treasuries to then use us to get alpha from their treasuries.
That's a great idea. I mean, a buddy of mine's helping a couple of projects with their treasuries, right? But it's such a painful manual process. This is an awesome way to, I mean, certainly your TVL is going to soar, and it's a great way for them to put that to work instead of being, I mean, look, we're all right now, I think there's this big trend right now to not just have your treasury be your token, right? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, that's a disaster when the market crashes, but also being able to leverage other investment vehicles for it. And I think that'll be very powerful. I think that's going to surpass your garden.
I wish. And then we can also offer primitives like, you want to emit tokens or you want to emit bonds. Maybe then we also offer a way for kind of like the new Y Combinator. So you create a garden for your company. Instead of a garden, it could be something else, and that's how you bootstrap your project, invest in it. In the end, then the crazy idea is we want to put all this in a metaverse, and then if you're a member of a garden, you can go visit your garden, and you have the whole city of Babylon, and you can walk from garden to garden or from place to place
I
in the
like
metaverse.
that. I like that a lot. I have a buddy that has it's called Worlds. He started on the Wax blockchain, and it's a Minecraft based metaverse. But it started because he and a few friends would get together every Sunday morning because they weren't religious. So every Sunday morning they would get together and in this Minecraft world talk about what they were grateful for, right, in their lives. And then they would put these plaques on this wall, and they built this massive building because it kept growing and growing and growing. And it turned into a project, and then it turned into this metaverse, and NFTs are the plots of land, and people are encouraged to visit those because people earn if they do. So that means they build really cool things. But that's a really cool idea to be able to kind of like travel around and do that. And I love the concept of actually people utilizing this infrastructure for launching businesses or projects, and utilizing the fact that there's going to be thousands of investors in there who are looking for things to participate in.
Exactly.
That's
there's
cool.
so many. It's a lot of work ahead of us. So we love what we're doing, and in the end, we want to help people generate more wealth and access these opportunities. So we'll work really hard to make it happen.
Nice. All right, 3 more questions. Did your 15 buddies from Telegram come into the gardens?
Yes.
Yes.
I think all of them. Maybe
Nice.
one, but yeah, I think almost all of them.
That's cool. And are you running?
That's a tricky question because I cannot answer that. But I would say that most of the gardens are run by community members.
Got it. I understand. Okay. And then I have is there anything else we should know about Babylon before I ask you what I ask everyone as a final?
I think you can check everything in babylon.finance, and then we have our document at like paper and everything at docs.babylon.finance. And then on Twitter we're as well, and we have our Discord and we have our Telegram, so you can find that.
And people should go to the website and sign up for, if they want to get involved, sign up for the wait list. And then you guys, well, how long do people currently waiting?
Right now, around 3 weeks, but the private beta is going to end around the end of December, because
good.
In 2 weeks with this event, for the NFT event, we're also giving these people instant access into the beta,
nice.
Because it is also the quarter with the highest mining rewards, because the rewards last for 10 years, but the first quarter is the highest, then the second is the second highest, and so on, but it lasts 10 years. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. And it's the web address is babylon.finance.
Yeah.
And on Twitter
is Babylon Finance, I think, all together. Yeah.
Okay.
You can follow me at Ramon Recuero, my whole first name and last name.
And I'll put it I always put everybody's URLs in the show notes. Okay, so I ask everyone this as a last question. What are some projects or people that you admire in the space, or that you think are absolutely critical to the future, or you think that are doing really cool things? It can be somebody famous, or it can be somebody you think is just doing cool stuff that maybe isn't seen as much.
That's a great question. Let me
projects.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of kind of heroes that are hidden, especially in the audit security space. One project that I like a lot is Immunify. That they basically have all these white hat hackers that are bounty hunters, and that they have discovered so many exploits, so many millions of dollars that they have saved. I mean, and they have earned part of it as the bounty, but
sure,
but it's a lot.
Yeah,
it's like 1% of what could have happened otherwise. So I think in general the industry needs to, I wouldn't say reward, but appreciate a bit more the work by the security auditors and this. I also like this project called Sherlock that is just starting, that is also trying to do this security audits kind of protocol, that they basically give a score to every protocol, and based on that you can provide insurance and get insurance. It's kind of like a different model that Nexus Mutual, that also I think is a good project in the space. So I think the industry hopefully matures from all this, because you saw that this week there were a few hacks again. Then I think Polygon almost got hacked 800 million, but it was found out in time. So this thing in the end hurts all the ecosystem. When one project gets hacked, in the end, it kind of reduces the trust from
Exactly.
everyone coming into DeFi. So we need to focus on this for the whole DeFi.
Yeah, I
ecosystem.
totally agree. And the thing I do love is even when even like rival projects, rival in that they're going after kind of the same market or whatever. I mean, I think there's so much and it's so new that there's nothing of that really. But even when there have been conflicts between people understand well enough that they need to help the other project out and alert them to a problem before it's a big problem. And I love seeing that. And I love the fact that so much of the space is open book about things that happened afterwards, and we're all working to solve together, and to me, that's incredible. But I think you're right that there's like at Immunify, there's all these people that have the skills to be out there hacking and stealing money.
Yeah.
Right. And instead, they're choosing to take a much smaller percentage of what they could get. And of course, look, there's risk on the other side, but they're choosing to do the right thing. And they probably have a lot of fun doing it and try to find these vulnerabilities and earn from it, but not exploit and take money from people. So I think that's a good one. I like it. Ramon, thank you so much for your time. I can't wait to jump into Babylon and play with it. And maybe I'll get in there and create a garden and drag all my friends in and make them put their money in. And I really think this is a great concept. I love that you are thinking of a future where it becomes even more flexible for other things that could be built. And I think it's a great idea. I love that you're having success with it, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Brad. This was a lot of fun, and you know where we are. You have any questions?
Definitely. And I want to have you back in maybe 6 months or so, and let's see how things are going. Great, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.